Newton's laws and related information. Force. A quantity measuring a push or pull on an object. In other words, force is a unit that measures how much directional pressure an object is experiencing. For example, if you push on a wall or any other object, you are exerting a certain amount of force on that object. Friction. Friction is the resistance to motion of one object moving on another. In other words, the friction is the reason all things don't slide around on each other, like pucks on ice. For example, if I push a rough wooden block on a rough wooden surface, it will not slide easily. This means that friction is present and that its coefficient is high. Ice on ice would resist less, so the coefficient would be low. Inertia. Inertia is a natural occurrence that is manifested in the way that an object will not change velocity unless acted on by an external force. In other words, an object with a certain direction and speed will only change direction and speed if another force is exerted on it. For example, if I roll a ball down a horizontal surface, it will not change direction unless another force, a kick, wind, etc., acts on it. It will not change speed unless a force, friction, gravity in the case of a hill, etc., acts on it. Speed. Speed is how fast an object is moving. 100 kilometers an hour is an example, such as a Lamborghini flying down the highway at 200 kilometers an hour. Velocity. Velocity is basically the vector version of speed. It is speed plus a direction, such as 100 meters per second, 6 degrees north of west. An example is a Lamborghini flying down the highway at 200 kilometers an hour, straight north. Acceleration. Acceleration is basically a synonym for speeding up. In other words, if an object was at a speed of 5 meters per second and 2 seconds later he was going 10 meters per second, he accelerated. For example, a police car speeding up from a standstill to 120 kilometers an hour in 10 seconds. Gravity. Gravity is a natural occurrence that attracts all objects with mass to each other. To say it differently, an object with mass will have some force pressuring any other object with mass to itself and vice versa. For example, we are attracted to the surface of the Earth as a result of gravity. Now we move on to Newton's first law. Newton's first law states that an object will not change velocity unless another force that is not equal to zero is applied to it. Or, if net force equals zero, then velocity equals zero. For example, if a ball is moving at 5 meters per second, it will continue at 5 meters per second unless another non-zero force is applied to it. That non-zero force could be gravity, friction, or somebody pushing on it. Newton's second law. Newton's second law states that an object will accelerate in the direction of the external net force. The magnitude of acceleration is directly proportional to the magnitude of the net force and inversely proportional to the mass of the object, or net force equals mass times acceleration. For example, if a 5 kilogram object accelerates at 2 meters per second, then the net force is 10 newtons. Newton's third law. Newton's third law states that when object A exerts a force on object B, then B exerts a force on A that is equal in magnitude and opposite direction, or force A on B equals negative force B on A. For example, if I pull a box 10 newtons north, the box pulls on me with 10 newtons south.
The end.